Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1993 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Convertible. Up front is a 3.4 liter V6 and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now I'm super excited to be driving this here Cutlass Supreme Convertible because, well, I've actually never driven an Oldsmobile before. And Oldsmobile is a very interesting company because it's no longer around, but also because they did a lot of interesting things back in the day. And we'll get into that towards the end of the video. But let's get back to that 3.4 liter V6. It's a 24 valve dual overhead cam V6, which is interesting for 1993. It makes about 200 horsepower and 215 foot-pounds of torque. Now, it's not the fastest car in the world. You're not gonna win many drag races with this car. However, it's a nice, smooth power band. It makes good, honest power. And honestly, driving it around, especially a convertible like this, you just want a little bit of power to get around. And that's exactly what this offers. It's nice, smooth, and comfortable, and I don't feel like it really needs any more. Not bad. It definitely moves the car, but like I said, you're not gonna win any races. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic transmission from GM. It's shifting when I want it to. It's pretty quiet and pretty well maintained. I haven't really noticed any weird clunks or rattles from it, and that's honestly all I can ask for from a GM transmission. Last but not least, the Cutlass Supreme is front-wheel drive. Now, back in the day, of course, they were rear-wheel drive, but Oldsmobile is actually credited as bringing back the front-wheel drive platform in the 1960s. There were front-wheel drive cars before it in the 30s, but they were really clunky setups. They were essentially 4-wheel drive setups with the rear end taken out. But in the 1960s, Oldsmobile actually pioneered a newer front-wheel drive system that became very popular and is actually still in use today. So, a little bit of fun fact about Oldsmobile. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. We have a lot of 90s, well, really 80s GM quirkiness to be found here in the Olds. Well, in front of me, I have 6 gauges. On the left is my temperature, oil pressure, speedometer, and on the right, I have my tachometer, battery voltage, and fuel, as well as my odometer and trip odometer to the far right. And as you'll see, this vehicle only has 72,000 original miles, which is really fantastic. To the left of the gauges is the power top option. So this does have a power folding top, video that I am showing right now, and it is rather slow. The power folding top is not quick, it is not responsive, but it does have a power folding top, and then you just have to latch it up where it meets the top of the windshield. Not that big of a deal, most convertibles are like that even today. However, again, very nice for 1993. Something to be noted about the convertible top, however, is that if you're looking to buy one that needs a new convertible top, you're looking at about $2,500 for a new top, $2,500. So something to keep in mind if that Craigslist ad says needs new top, you're gonna be paying a pretty penny for it. Down below the gauges, I have 2 climate control vents and I have my light switches. They're sort of attached to the gauges in a very boxy manner, which is why this car really feels more 80s than it does feel 90s. Just below the gauges, this is a very 80s thing. It says unleaded fuel only, because back in the 80s, there still were some gas stations that didn't have all unleaded. Now today, every gas station, they're all unleaded. So you don't really need that reminder, but very 80s right there. On the steering wheel, I actually have a bunch of buttons. On the left is my fan speed, temperature, and mode, and on the right is program, volume, and seek for the radio. So air conditioning and heating options on the left, and radio controls on the right. This is a pre-airbag steering wheel before it was mandated here in the US, so I don't get an airbag, but I do get a horn, of which those 2 little thumb buttons are not functional, but the center button for the horn is. Moving on to the door, I do have a slide lock and unlock, and then my power mirrors and power windows. Now, the interesting thing about the power window buttons is that if you actually hold the bottom 2 power window buttons down at the same time, all 4 windows will go down together. So when you take the top down with the power folding top and you want to bring the windows down at the same time, hold the bottom 2 window switches in the bottom position and all 4 windows will go down. Fun little Easter egg and very useful feature here in the Cutlass Supreme Convertible. Moving into the center, I do have the stock GM radio, very 80s and 90s here. especially with the green lights, very reminiscent of 90s and early 2000s GM. And I have a couple of equalizers. I do have Dolby noise reduction and a Delco tape player. Down below the radio, I have my electronic climate control, which is very interesting. Very, very 80s here. The big square buttons, very well labeled. And honestly, for 72,000 miles, this car has held up pretty well. However, as the owner, Paul, pointed out to me, there is no AC button. It's all based off temperature, so you don't have to hit the AC, which I actually think is a nice feature. You don't have to remember to hit it when you're like 6 minutes into your drive and you're like, why isn't this thing cooling down? No, the Cutlass Supreme does that for you, which is very, very nice. Then I have an ashtray and cigarette lighter, aka 12-volt outlet, and a little cubby here to put whatever you want. In the 90s, I would imagine a Nirvana CD or maybe some Pokemon cards. Down in the center console, I do have a fog light switch, which is an odd placement for it. Then we get to the shifter itself. The shifter looks fine. It looks the same as every other shifter you'll see in every other 90s GM product from the 80s through the 2000s. It's fine, it works, and it has the big push button on the side. Just below the shifter, I have a little cubby, and then I have the center console, which the center console is actually hiding something very important. It's hiding our cup holder. So, the cup holder is actually found here in the center console, and it folds out, and we'll do a big friggin' bottle test, and anyone with eyes can see that the big friggin' bottle will not fit in the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Convertible's cup holder. Before we get on with the rest of the review, I want to give a huge thank you to Fixed. Fixed is a Bluetooth OBD2 sensor for your car. You can plug it into any OBD2 vehicle, which is a vehicle manufactured after 1996, and you can take a look at your gauges, you can keep an eye on your temperature, you can see your speed, you can time your 0 to 60. There's tons of really cool features that will pair directly to your smartphone, and it gives you great insight on your vehicles. Fixed is giving my viewers a hefty discount, so click the link in the description below, get your own Fixed OBD2 Bluetooth sensor, and start learning more about your car. Now we gotta talk about the seats. The seats are very, very comfy. GM knew what they were doing in the 90s when it came to seats. Very plush, very comfortable, yet still holding me decently in place. Enough in place for a Cutlass Supreme Convertible, let's be honest here. And the interesting thing is that these seat belts are actually mounted to the door instead of mounted on the B-pillar. Speaking of the B-pillar, as you'll notice now in the video as I fix my hair, behind me I have a roll bar, except it's not a roll bar, it's a style bar. This bar behind me has absolutely zero structural integrity. It will fold like a piece of paper if you roll over. It's just for looks because actually that's what Mercedes was doing at the time. They actually had a roll bar, but GM, well, they didn't want to do the R&D to make a roll bar, so they just stuck some plastic and a little bit of sheet metal and called it a day. This will not protect you. But right behind it is the rear seats. So let's go do a back seat review. Now, the really nice thing about the back seats here is the fact that they are full bucket seats. So, while getting into them might not be graceful, and this style bar actually really gets in the way of getting in. But once I'm in, let me fold this back up. This is my driving position. I fit back here really, really well. For a convertible, especially for a Coupe 4 convertible, I fit back here really well. I do have an ashtray over here. I have my own little window switch. Can bring this little corner window up and down. I don't know if that's actually coming across on screen. The style bar might be blocking it. But 2+2 seating back here, meaning that there is no center seat. I actually get a little center console with 2 cup holders that come out on the underside of the lid. But besides that, not too much back here. The style bar is very interesting from back here. It kind of makes you feel a little claustrophobic, a little bit, I don't know. It's just, the whole concept of this is just very strange to me because it is that of a style bar and not a roll bar. If it was a roll bar for protection, obviously, yes, let's be safe, people, but it's not. Let's take a quick look at the trunk and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so around the back of the 1993 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Shout out to this amazingly named fellow. But let's pop the trunk here. This is a 90s GM, so I actually have a different key for the trunk. Once back here, honestly, tons of space for what it is. For being a convertible, a lot of space. Very wide opening, as you can see, coming all the way around here. Very wide opening. I really, really love that. And look, there's just a lot of space. Really, really happy with the trunk space. Now we gotta talk about the looks. I love the color of this, and I love the 4 headlights. I think it's a very unique looking GM W body vehicle. This shares a platform with like the Pontiac Grand Prix and Chevy Lumina, and you can see hints at it, but I still think the Oldsmobile looks different enough to be attractive. Now we gotta talk about the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Convertible as a whole, and actually I wanna take a second here to talk about Oldsmobile as a whole. Well, Oldsmobile went belly up around 2000. In 2000, GM declared that they were going to start phasing out Oldsmobile, and by 2005, they were all gone. So, Oldsmobile is actually one of the companies that went belly up from GM before 2008, when GM cut half their lineup. This was a pre-2008 cut. It's like getting cut from the baseball team during spring training. You don't even make it to opening day. But Oldsmobile is actually a very fascinating company if you start to dive into it. They're the second oldest auto manufacturer ever, being founded in 1897, only second to Mercedes-Benz. It was founded by Ransom Eli Olds, hence the name Oldsmobile, and he built the first auto manufacturing factory, a factory that actually cranked out these vehicles. Where Mercedes, it was just a shop that built them, but Oldsmobile was a factory. In the late 1930s, they're credited with the first fully automatic transmission. In the 1960s, they're credited with bringing back front-wheel drive. And in the 1990s, they're credited, by me, of having the most memorable chime in a vehicle for the closing door. And that's from the minivans because my aunt and uncle had one, and it's burned into my memory. When the doors were closing. So maybe that last one was just personal history, but Oldsmobile was actually at the forefront of a lot of technology. They were at the cutting edge at one point, which is hard to believe. They pioneered higher compression motors, which actually were very popular in NASCAR when NASCAR first started. I mean, the list goes on and on of their innovation. But now this 1993 Cutlass Supreme Convertible, well, this is not at the cutting edge. And less than 10 years after this car came out, Oldsmobile was no more. And while I think it's a shame, I really love this car. I really, really do. For a cruiser, for a comfortable cruiser, this is great. No, it's not a performance car. No, it's not going to set down insane lap times up at Road America. But for a comfortable Sunday drive, like I'm doing right now, look at this. Beautiful scenery, nice open road, sunshine above me. I can't imagine many more cars I'd like to be in. But even as much as I like this car, it was time for Oldsmobile. It was just time. Oldsmobile had run its course. And I think the name Olds really hurt their brand in the long run. You're buying a new car with literally the term old in it. I don't know a single young person that wants something with the term old in it. It's all about the fresh, it's all about the new. New. Maybe if they switched it to Newsmobile, maybe they would have stuck around. Wow, pitiful turning radius. Pitiful turning radius, my God. Ay. You know, there's something beautiful about calling it a day. Oldsmobile had a day with the 448 and the Cutlass and everything that came before it. And there's something admirable about calling it. Oldsmobile didn't go bankrupt. Sure, they weren't making a lot of money in the end, but neither was my late grandfather. He would just kind of eat cherries and sit on a train bridge. It didn't take a financial crisis in the United States to kill Oldsmobile. It was just time to go. Oldsmobile's bags were packed. It had lived a good life, a good, solid, memorable, important life. But the train was at the station. And while it sucks to say goodbye, there's also a comfort in knowing that the suffering is over. That Oldsmobile wasn't going to turn into an economy, slush box, boring company. If Oldsmobile were around today, it would be rebadged Chevy Sparks. And Oldsmobile doesn't deserve that. So while I wanted to say gone too soon, in all reality, Oldsmobile knew when to hold them, and Oldsmobile knew when to fold them. I really like this car. It was really good in its era, and that's all I can ask for. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Paul for letting me take out his Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Convertible. He's been an absolute awesome help to the channel. I've reviewed a couple of his vehicles. Always a great supporter, always hits me up when he gets new fun cars, and this was the latest addition. So huge thank you to him, and huge thank you to you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.